The serpent in the grass, Gaddafi, Museveni, and the betrayer of Pan-African dreams. Muammar Gaddafi, the flamboyant Libyan leader, left an indelible mark on Africa. His 4-decade reign was a whirlwind of revolutionary fervor, eccentric pronouncements, and a passionate, if often misguided, pursuit of a United States of Africa. His downfall, however, was a complex tapestry woven with threads of love, money, and, most poignantly, betrayal. At the heart of this betrayal lies a relationship with a man Gaddafi considered a friend, a man whose actions ultimately contributed to Gaddafi's demise. This is the story of how Yoweri Museveni, the president of Uganda, went from Gaddafi's staunch ally to a key player in his downfall, a narrative that exposes the intricate dynamics of African politics and the enduring influence of Western powers. A friendship forged in fire, Gaddafi's enduring bond with Uganda. Gaddafi's connection with Uganda wasn't a sudden development, it was a relationship cultivated over decades, beginning in the 1970s during the tumultuous reign of Idi Amin. Gaddafi, a staunch anti-imperialist, provided substantial moral, economic, and military support to Amin's regime. In times of crisis, when Amin's government faced attacks, Gaddafi was his unwavering defender, sending troops and military aid. This unwavering support, however, would eventually unravel in a dramatic fashion. When Amin was overthrown in 1979, he fled to Libya and later settled in Saudi Arabia. Uganda, in 1980, held elections, the results of which were disputed by Yoweri Museveni. Claiming the elections were rigged, Museveni launched a civil war against the ruling government. Running low on weapons and ammunition, Museveni, rejected by Western powers due to his association with Gaddafi, turned to his country's old friend for assistance. Gaddafi, without hesitation, provided Museveni with the necessary military supplies, enabling him to emerge victorious. This support continued through the Ugandan Civil War of 1986, solidifying the bond between the two leaders. After seizing power, Museveni's military was trained by Libyans, and he even named his secret intelligence agency after its Libyan counterpart, a testament to the depth of their relationship. Gaddafi frequently visited Uganda, investing heavily in the country's infrastructure and economy. Through the Libyan African portfolio, he acquired significant shares in Uganda's telecommunications corporation, Uganda Telecom, and a textile company, Tristar Limited. He even persuaded Museveni not to sell Uganda's unrefined oil to Europe and the West, promising to help build a refinery and pipelines to Kenya and other neighboring countries. Gaddafi's investments extended to the finance and real estate sectors, including the Tropical Bank of Africa, the National Housing Corporation, and the Lake Victoria Hotel. Furthermore, Gaddafi, through Museveni, provided support, including arms, to the RPF rebels after they invaded Rwanda in 1990. This support, flown into Uganda by Museveni's regime, further demonstrates the extent of their collaboration and the depth of their friendship. Gaddafi's influence also extended to the Toro Kingdom within Uganda. He developed a strong interest in this kingdom, particularly after its ruler, King Oyunaimba, ascended the throne at the tender age of 9. Gaddafi financed numerous projects in the kingdom, including the construction of the Toro Palace. His legacy also lives on in the Ugandan Muslim community, where he contributed significantly to the construction of a grand mosque, the second largest in Eastern Africa. During his visits to Uganda, Gaddafi's relationship with Museveni seemed almost familiar. He even jokingly encouraged Museveni to rule for life, questioning the need for elections. He also showed personal favor, promoting one of Museveni's sons in the military. Gaddafi's support extended to Museveni's political campaigns, providing backing for the 2001 and 2006 presidential elections. Their bond appeared unbreakable, but the seeds of betrayal were already being sown. The cracks in the foundation, Western interest and Gaddafi's Pan-African ambitions. Gaddafi's vision for Africa was grand and ambitious. He was a fervent proponent of a United States of Africa, a concept he championed tirelessly. He envisioned a continent united under a single currency and a unified military, a powerful force capable of challenging Western influence. He played a pivotal role in the creation of the African Union, contributing a significant portion of its funding. This vision, however, was perceived as a threat by Western powers and some African leaders, including Museveni. Museveni, while publicly acknowledging Gaddafi's Pan-African efforts, harbored reservations. He was wary of any structure that could potentially diminish his own power and influence in Uganda. He also recognized that supporting Gaddafi's vision could jeopardize his relationships with Western powers, upon whom he relied for financial and military support. Museveni's stance was further influenced by his own regional ambitions. He sought to expand his influence in the region, often serving Western interests through military interventions in countries like Somalia. He prioritized his relationships with the West over his allegiance to Gaddafi and his Pan-African ideals. The growing divergence between Gaddafi and Museveni became evident in 2007 when the issue of a United States of Africa was tabled at an African Union meeting in Accra. Museveni, fearing a conflict with Western powers, vehemently opposed the idea. He understood that supporting such a union would strain his relationships with the West, who he knew could easily destabilize his regime. The final betrayal, a shift in allegiances. The final nail in the coffin of their relationship came in 2008. During his son's graduation ceremony in the United States, Museveni expressed his reservations about a united Africa to a U.S. official, citing linguistic and cultural differences. He even claimed that Gaddafi's approach to African unity, involving smaller nations, hindered open dialogue during international meetings. He further expressed concerns about potential attacks on his plane by Gaddafi and sought protection from the United States. Gaddafi, in turn, grew suspicious of Museveni's growing ties with the West. During a visit to Uganda in 2008, he publicly announced his intention to work with traditional leaders, rather than elected presidents, to achieve his Pan-African goals. This was perceived by Museveni's government as a direct challenge to his authority. In 2009, when Gaddafi convened a meeting of African traditional leaders to discuss continental unity, Museveni blocked Ugandan rulers from attending. The relationship deteriorated further when Gaddafi, after discussions with British diplomats, began to dismantle his weapons of mass destruction program, believing that this would lead to increased Western investment in Libya. This decision, influenced in part by Museveni's assurances, proved to be a fatal mistake. It left Gaddafi vulnerable to Western intervention, ultimately contributing to his downfall. Museveni, meanwhile, continued to solidify his relationships with Western powers, even echoing their criticisms of Gaddafi's regime. The once strong bond between Gaddafi and Museveni had completely disintegrated, replaced by suspicion, distrust, and ultimately, betrayal. Museveni, prioritizing his own political survival and his relationships with the West, abandoned his longtime ally, contributing to Gaddafi's isolation and eventual demise. The mosque built in Uganda and named after Gaddafi was renamed, a symbolic act that underscored the finality of the betrayal. The aftermath and the unfinished dream. Gaddafi's downfall and death left a void in African politics. His dream of a united Africa, though flawed and ultimately unrealized, still resonates with many who yearn for a stronger and more independent continent. Museveni, despite his efforts to position himself as a champion of African unity, lacks the charisma and the financial resources to fill the void left by Gaddafi. His past actions, particularly his betrayal of Gaddafi, have damaged his credibility and made it difficult for him to garner the necessary support for such a monumental undertaking. The story of Gaddafi and Museveni is a complex and tragic one, a story of friendship, betrayal, and the clash between personal ambition and Pan-African ideals. It highlights the challenges facing the African continent in its quest for unity and independence, and the enduring influence of Western powers in shaping the continent's destiny. It serves as a reminder that the path to African unity is fraught with obstacles, both internal and external, and that true leadership requires not only vision but also unwavering commitment to the greater good of the continent.